everybody, and welcome once again to Bedtime Stories with Andriana Garland, the show where I read you bedtime stories because you're an adult and still need those, apparently. So, anyway, I will be reading from my newest book, The Dangerous Princess. It's a fantasy novel based on the concept of adventuring or questing, kind of like World of Warcraft, EverQuest, or D&D. So the fair Princess Cassandra in this excerpt has just run away from home to protect those she loves from her curse and has just spent her first full night alone in the woods. Cassandra was surprised, after years of sumptuous feather beds, that a carpet of green moss with little star flowers could feel as comfortable as it did. But after riding half the night through the woods on a stolen horse, not really stolen given that she was a princess, she'd fallen asleep in mere minutes after finally collapsing in the gray light of pre-dawn. Unfortunately, she was just now remembering she had been so tired that she'd forgotten to tie the horse to something. The ominous sounds of the dark woods and the possibility of insects, wolves, or other dangers seemed horribly remote when she'd been so tired that she began slipping off the back of the affable gray gelding. She'd slipped off of him beneath a tall willow tree whose canopy hid her quite well, and fallen asleep on a bed of thick spongy moss. Had she tied the horse to one of the branches? Her head felt too thick and sleepy with tiredness to remember. But now she was being forced to awaken. Something was poking her. A stick? Had she rolled over on a stick? No! The stick was actively poking her, which meant it must be wielded by a person! Her sleepy brain caught up with her senses, forcing her eyes wide open into the sudden glare of bright sunlight, even as it filtered through the flicker of long willow branches. Cassandra gasped and blinked several times. But what she saw was not the glare of sunlight bouncing off the green leaves of the willow tree. The person poking her with a stick was green. Had skin as green as a lizard's, golden, shiny, green, and inhuman. "So you're alive, then? I'd almost worried I'd come across a corpse," the thing said with a surprisingly rich female contralto voice. "You're a troll," Cassandra managed to squeak out as she slid backward along the ground until her shoulder blades came to rest quite painfully on the trunk of a tree. "Please don't eat me." The thing gave a throaty laugh, tossing back a head of long, violet-colored hair. "Well, I'm only half-troll, if that helps, and has never eaten a human before. This hardly seems the day to start." The half-troll female extended her hand, with its neatly trimmed, slightly curved claws toward Cassandra. "Here, let me help you up." Cassandra slowly grasped its hand and led it to help her to her feet. The troll smiled at her broadly. "My name is Raina. I'm a scout from the village a mile over. My job is mainly to look for wolf dens, robber encampments, and things like that, but an unconscious lady of import does tend to catch the eye." Cassandra shook her head, still caught a few sentences back. "Half-troll? I don't understand how such a thing could be possible." She bit her tongue abruptly as she realized how rude and possibly painful her words were. Apparently Raina was used to this reaction. She just shrugged. "My mother is a troll, and my father, well, human, is blind, if that explains anything." Raina smiled broadly again, showing a row of glittering pointed teeth. "He didn't even know she was a troll for a full year after they were wed." Cassandra could not believe something so utterly preposterous. "No one told him? I mean, surely the vicar who married them would have." Raina leaned on the long, polished wooden staff she had been poking Cassandra with. "My father was a lonely clay potter, living by himself at the edge of town, and being pitied by the villagers after his parents died for having no one to care for him. I think the townspeople were so relieved that someone was assuaging their guilt by helping him out that they didn't want to risk disrupting the situation by mentioning that the kindly young woman bringing him soup and tending his garden happened to be a troll. If they had mentioned it, and my father had refused to see her any more, they'd have gone back to feeling guilty about failing to aid their neighbor." Cassandra brushed the stray leaves off her dark blue gown, which she had thought plain enough to blend in, but seeing the scout's leather garb, which shockingly included pants, made her realize that she did look very much like a lady of import. "However did a troll come to be living in the village anyway? I mean, I know this is terribly rude of me to ask, but from the stories I was told, they're—" "Great slavering brutes hungry for human flesh?" Raina asked, running a hand over what Cassandra had initially taken to be a strange headband or hair decoration, but she now realized was a very much attached row of spines across Raina's head, parting her violet hair as neatly as a circlet. "Yes," Cassandra admitted, blushing scarlet. Raina pulled a loaf of bread and a wedge of cheese out of a leather satchel she had on her back and handed it to Cassandra with a nod for her to eat. "My mother was something of an outcast amongst the trolls, and quite a disappointment to her own parents. She never enjoyed the gloom of mountain caves, stealing sheep, crushing bones. They thought her quite a picky eater, as she never did develop a taste for human. Cassandra almost choked on the bread she was chewing, but Raina was still talking. So when she came of age, she left her clan's mountain caves and explored the woods outside my village. She built herself a hovel near the creek and lived there alone for several years, until she helped a nice blind potter collect clay from the creek bed for his workshop. Once the townspeople realized that she was cooking dinner for him, and not him for dinner, they pretty much left them alone. Raina was already putting the remains of the bread away and was pulling Cassandra out from under the tree and into the light of the morning. She was holding the reins of Cassandra's horse, who must have been wandering about in the woods. "Where are we going?" Cassandra asked. "A girl your age from a good family does not wander the woods alone unless she's gone mad or is running away." Raina gave Cassandra an appraising look. "You don't seem off your head, so that means someone is looking for you, and I'd better find out too." She gave Cassandra another glance. "Care to enlighten me?" Cassandra shook her head. "It's better and safer if I don't." Raina lifted a long vine draped in spider webs over their head for them to walk under. "If there's a reward for your capture, then you're pretty safe. If not, well, then you'd be better off telling me who you are. Anyone else might think what you're carrying is worth more than a reward." Raina stopped Cassandra before she stepped in a bear trap, mostly covered with dead leaves. "I have to be twice as good as the other village scouts, because I'm the only one who's half troll. They weren't keen on letting me be one at all." Raina poked the bear trap with a stick, causing it to snap shut, breaking the branch with a sickening crunch. "Half the town wasn't too keen on letting a half-breed like me live, let alone be a scout." Cassandra thought Raina's eyes had clouded with tears due to her memories, but realized that the girl was blinking a secondary eyelid similar to a lizard's. She felt horrible now about her initial reaction to the girl, who, in the light, was actually rather pretty, despite, or perhaps because of her strangeness. Obviously, Raina's lot in life was not an easy one. Perhaps being half-troll in a rural village was almost as bad as being a cursed princess. "There certainly are people looking for me, but it would be better if they didn't find me. Better for them," Cassandra said, blinking a bit, and not because they'd stepped out into the clearing where the sun was much brighter than the tree canopy. Her mother must be worried sick, and her father's probably furious enough to fire all the guards for their failure. Tears were welling up in her eyes at the thought of her poor mother's panic over her disappearance. It had been very cruel of her to forget to leave a note, for all her family knew she'd been kidnapped. If someone cares enough to look for you, why would it be better if you were not found? Raina had stopped near the edge of a creek. It had to be the one she'd spoken of, the one that led into her village. For no reason other than that she had no other choice, Cassandra decided to trust the half-troll. "Because of this." She wiped a tear from the corner of her eye and carefully let the bead of moisture fall into the creek. It instantly overran its banks as a geyser shot straight up from the center, sending a flurry of confused water-striding beetles up into the tree canopy, where they dangled wetly, unsure of what to do. Cassandra towed a gasping trout back into the bubbling stream with the tip of her boot. Raina's eyes widened. "Well, that's something I haven't seen before." She plucked a snail out of her luscious purple hair and dropped it back onto the creek bank. "Is that something you do at will, or accidentally?" she asked, nonplussed. Cassandra scrubbed her eyes with her fists, drying the rest of the tears before they could be shed. "I don't mean to. Really, I don't. It's just that every time one of my tears touches the ground, or a table, or—" Raina held up her hand, indicating she understood. "Ah, I see. I imagine everyone at home makes you miserable, trying to keep you from feeling like crying. Maybe even threatening you with violence?" Cassandra shook her head rapidly. "Oh, no, no. No one threatens me at all or yells at me, but no one ever asks what would make me happy. They're all too busy doing what they think will keep me from being sad, and as long as I can't control it properly, everyone I do care about is in real danger." Raina laughed. "So you decided to relocate yourself here, to a place where you cared much less about the inhabitants." She led Cassandra across a small rope bridge over the creek, presumably toward the village. The horse gave the skinny rope bridge a wide berth, huffing in exasperation at their lack of foresight as it forded the shallow stream instead. Well, there was a 10-minute bedtime story. I hope you enjoyed it. Please look for The Dangerous Princess on Amazon, available as an ebook or a paper copy. It should be there, and you can get the rest of the story then. Thanks, guys!